Yes, give examples. I say, believe, give a good example. Right. Is it showing properly? Does it show me here? Huh? Okay. Bayakut. Yeah. So we gave a lot of examples, right? Of tools and techniques. As I said, tools are devices that assist a project manager to be able to do his job. Like the brilliant guy have said, mind map, right? Mind map is a representation of graphical representation of information. You can assist the project manager. Gantt chart, you was it not yesterday you told me I must say Gantt chart? Né? Okay, right. Gantt chart is another example of a tool. She talked about spreadsheet. Good girl. She was able to mention two, and while you couldn't even talk about one, right? But I'm happy. I'm impressed. It tells me that people are listening to me, right? At least one person. He was able to redeem you, right? Then, yeah, give her a round of applause. She deserves it. Good girl. Good girl. Then we can talk about WBS, work schedule, milestone schedule, right? Those are things that you can see. Then, thereafter, we talk about the techniques. I say techniques are procedures, right, that can be applied. You cannot, it's not something physical that you can see. Right. Don't forget about desktop calendar, right? As part of tool, desktop calendar. We talk about it. Then, in relation to tools, we talk about brainstorming. Brainstorming, whereby you need to be able to, you use this to gather ideas. It happens in your brain. It's a mental operations. You can't see it, right? So a project manager should be able to brainstorm in terms of, most especially if you a project manager come across perhaps problems or opportunities, how to devise or formulate solutions to problems or take advantage of opportunities. Are you understanding what I'm saying? Right. Then I talk about co-location. Co-location, it works like this. Right. Co-location is good whereby you locate or you position team members to be seeing themselves day in, day out, to breed that familiarity. I said it yesterday. I said, for example, now, you see, I don't have an office. I'm sitting with you in the classroom. The advantage is that it makes you to be familiar with me, right? If it was a situation whereby I lock myself in an office, if you got a problem, for you to approach me will not be so easy because you don't know who am I, right? That means you will not be familiar with me as it is now. Because we are here every day together, then it enhances that level of familiarity. And we say familiarity brings a concept, right? Okay. Then we talk about that. We say collocation as we have it here is a placement technique where team members sit near to other to work. This leads to effective team development and teamwork. It's true, right? We tested it, like the simple example I'm giving you here now. It works, right? You sleeping, I see you. Now, control. I talked about it yesterday where you compare actual performance and the planned performance, right? What we are trying to say here is this. You've got a project, right? Your project have got a schedule, got a plan, what you need to achieve, right? At a certain point in time. That is the more reason we have what we call a Gantt chart. It's a schedule, it's a timeline that depicts or shows what needs to be done in a project at a different specific period. For example, you got a project of NCV to acquire NCV certificate. I told you, I will always be giving an example of it so that you know where you are, right? So the project duration is how long? 3 years. True of us. Okay. After 3 years, like I said, I don't expect to see you here, right? Hanging around. The project under normal circumstances will be done. Right. So during that 3 years, there are certain things that you need to do, certain tasks that needs to be performed. You need to come to class, you need to do your test, you need to do your exam, right? We got certain milestones. We could be level 2. When you complete your level 2, it's a milestone 1, right? Level 3 is a milestone 2, thereabout, something of that nature. Right. Now, at a specific point in time, for example, at level 2, you need to look back and see whether you are achieving what you set out to achieve. For example, at the end of level 2, if you are still carrying over papers, there are maybe perhaps there are papers that you fail. That means it's not going on the way it's supposed to be. Or let's say after 2 years, you spend 2 years here, you are still doing level 2. That means something is wrong, right? What it means is when you are doing control now, you try to compare your actual performance now, where you're supposed to, what you've done or what you've achieved compared to where you're supposed to achieve as per your planning. Let me give you another typical example, right? I gave it to you yesterday. Let's say you have a project for 4 weeks, right? The project is to span for 4 weeks. When I mean span for 4 weeks, that means 4 weeks duration. Are you with me? Right. So, all things being equal, at week 4, it's supposed to be 100% completed. Right? Week 1, 25%. Correct. Week 2, 50%. Week 3, 75%. Right. So, when you, let's say at a point now, let's say after week 2, you're supposed to complete 25%, 50%. So if you are still completing 35%, 35% is your actual performance, right? Your planned performance is 50%. What does it tell you? Your project is running late. Does it make sense to you? It's a red flag. Your planned performance is supposed to be what? 30. At week 2. It's like you don't understand what I'm explaining. Am I too fast? Can I slow down, modulate the frequency? Slow down. Do you understand the example I gave? Who doesn't understand? Talk to me. You don't understand. Okay. See what I'm saying? I'm giving an example of a project. Who is doing that? You mustn't do that. Please don't kick my stuff, man. Please be careful. No, no, no. Put your leg back. Put your leg back. Okay. What I'm saying, ladies and gentlemen, I'm talking about a project. I'm giving an example of a project. This project is scheduled for 4 months. 1 month, no, let's say 1 month, 4 weeks. How many more weeks in a month? 4. Okay. If a project, for example, is scheduled to last for 1 month, which is 4 weeks, right? What it means is that at the end of the 1 month, the project is supposed to be 100% completed. True of us. Do you understand it? You don't understand because the way you say yes, there is no base. It's losing. Do you understand? You don't understand. Can you explain to what I'm saying? Explain to her. All right. No, never mind. We are here to learn. You must understand it. We got a project to run for 1 month, right? Hey, this one is not showing properly. Excuse. Look at it. We got a project, right? Running, right? For 1 month, 4 weeks. Right. So here the level of completion. This is the you say start. Amen. End. Right? These are weeks. Right. Here it will be 100%. That means completed. Here gonna be 0%, 25%, 50%, 75%. Hello, right? This is what I'm saying. This one, right? When you plan your project, you plan it in such a way that at the end of week 4 is gonna be 100%. At the end of week 3, 75%. Week 2, 50%. Week 1, 25%. Okay. This is your planned performance. Right? Now, at a certain point in time, you want to see if you are doing the right thing. Because let me explain how the concept of or the practice of control comes in a project. You need to observe to see whether on the right track or whether you are on the right track in terms of progress. Let's assume that at week 2, you observe, you want to see whether you are doing the right thing. Then you observe that based on your observation, in terms of your performance, you discover that you are still you've completed 35%, right? Which means there is a problem here now. Because by week 2, you're supposed to have completed 50%. This 50% is your planned performance, right? Your actual performance is 35%, what you've done so far. Actual performance means what you've achieved so far in the project. For example, if it is 35%, it's a red flag. There's a problem here. That your project is running behind schedule. Because if you are to continue on this race based on your progress here now, it means that you will not be able to complete, to make it 100% at the end of week 4, obviously. Right. So, what you're going to do now, you need to control it. How do you control? You take corrective measures. Corrective measures. First of all, you need to establish here what is going on. Because I'm not progressing the way it should be. There's a problem. You need to correct it before time. Otherwise, if it continues like this, by the end of week 4, your project will not be completed. And it's going to be a failure. Either you ask for extension of time, which of course will make you to request for more money. And that kind of a situation is not healthy for a project. It means you are not a good project manager, perhaps. Does it make sense to you? Because you're supposed to have take correction from here. This is what we are talking about, right? Control. Are you with me now? Good. Right. You need to do that. Cost of quality, whatever it costs you to ensure the quality of the project must be, yes, that is one of the techniques. Then crashing. Crashing. What do you mean by crashing? Crashing is trying to decrease the duration of a project. Trying to decrease it. For example, you got a situation like this, right? 4 months, 4 weeks, sorry to say, to complete the project, right? Then the project, perhaps the client or the sponsor said, is there anything you can do to complete the project quickly? Because we need the project. We want to make use of it, right? If there is something you can do, perhaps, to deliver the project before 4 weeks, even 3 weeks, they will be happy. That means what you need to do now, a project that was previously scheduled to span for 4 weeks, you want to reduce it to 3 weeks. It's possible. That is what we call crashing. You crash it. What you need to do here now, you put in more resources than usual. For example, in a situation whereby, let's say, 10 people are working on the project, you put 15 to make the job to be done more quicker, right? Or you can ask them to do overtime. If they were performing 8 hours in a day before, you say you work perhaps 12 hours, if possible, right? Overtime. Yeah, it's money. You're going to get paid. Then you see the project will be done on time. That is what we refer to as crashing. And why are we mentioning crashing here? It's a techniques, tactics, right? Procedures employed by project managers to get project work done and be able to be able to achieve the objectives of the project. Are you understanding what I'm saying? I made mention of this yesterday. This kind of repetition, right? Of which you're supposed to sink now. You're supposed to absorb this into your system. Right. Decomposition. What do we mean by decomposition? You break the project down into manageable task packages. Right? That is decomposition. Do you understand what I'm saying? Tomorrow, don't let me see you outside. Eh? You take the project as a whole, right? You try to break it down into smaller tasks that needs to be done. Why do we need that? Of course, you need it. Because if you don't know what needs to be done in a project, you started setting up the project for a failure. You need to know what needs to be done. It's gonna help you in estimating the time, the timeline, in preparing, in estimating how long the project is gonna take you. It's gonna help you to estimate even the resources that are required. Because if you don't know what needs to be done in a project, will you be able to obtain the resources? You won't be able to know what is required, right? Then when you are estimating, it's going to help you as well to estimate the cost of the project. So that is why you need to decompose, right? Decomposition, you know. The literary meaning of decomposition, when you didn't do agricultural science there. Compass, right? Compass. You take, let's say, food, leftover food and all those type of stuff, you mix it together, you put it decompose, right? So what does it mean? It breaks down into the minute or smaller particles. That is what we mean by decomposition. Are you getting it? Right. You getting it? Right? Is it clear? Yeah. Then you need to do a kind of a design review as well, whereby you evaluate the project design, right? To ensure that it meets requirements. You review it. What are we trying to say here now? For example, let's say it's a construction, right? You've already proposed how it's going to be, right? Mind you, when you are doing it, it's like you plan it in the cloud. So what you plan in the cloud needs to be executed. Perhaps during the execution stage, it might not be exactly the way you plan it. It has to be reviewed. It's a technique as well. Why do you need to review it? You need to review it to ensure that it meets the requirement, right? In terms of reality, because it was in the cloud. You know how to plan in the cloud. This is what I'm going to do. Now, when you start executing it, that is reality, right? Sometimes what you think about is not what is in real life situation. You need to make an adjustment. That is the essence of a review, right? You make an adjustment in order to meet the requirement of the project. Does it make sense to you? Right. That is why you see project managers, they are very clever, right? They are up to date. You must be on top of your game. You must know your game very well. Play it nicely. Like a chess. No chess. How many of you know how to play chess? Project managers, they are chess players. Right. Inspection. Jonga, she's sleeping. Hello. You sleeping in my class. First period. You mustn't do that. Inspection. You need to inspect, right? You need to inspect to make sure that you're doing the right thing. Correct. Right? You need to inspect to see that the right thing is being done. It's part of project techniques. Right? SWOT analysis. This one is an evaluation tool. Evaluation tool. Project managers, they do employ this evaluation tool to be able to know, to evaluate their strengths against their weaknesses and the opportunities that are available, right? You as a project manager, sometimes you just come across something, right? Maybe an opportunity or whatever, a problem, and you want to make an informed decision. Hello, you want to make an informed decision, right? In other words, you want to make a decision that is evidence based. You know what we mean by evidence based decision? A well thought decision, a rational decision, not a decision that you just wake up from slumber and start making decisions. And when it fails, it bite back on you. You start biting your finger and say, "Had I known?" No, you must sit down, right? You do a kind of an evaluation in terms of where does my strength lies, or where does the strength of the project lies in face of the weaknesses, right? What about the opportunities? What are the opportunities that we are out to take advantage of? Of course, you need to consider the threat as well that can make things to that can have negative impact. Right. So you do a kind of SWOT analysis. Of course, project manager they do a kind of SWOT analysis before they take any decision. Does it make sense to you? Even myself, every time I do a kind of SWOT analysis, if I want to make a decision, most especially if I want to embark or start a new project or a new initiative, I have to quickly evaluate myself to see whether I will be able to undertake such a initiative or endeavor, if you will. Then trend analysis. Trend analysis. You know what we mean by trend? Pattern. You know pattern. How do you pronounce it? Pattern. You know what I'm talking about? I can't write on this, right? I'm gonna mess it up. Pattern. You know pattern. Pattern means trend. But you know when they say something is trendy, when they say something is trendy, you know what we mean. You know, trendy. When they say something is trendy on social media, what does it mean? It's viral, right? Okay. So when we say trend analysis, we try to see the pattern, right? Right. We do that in project. You as a project manager, you can as well use it to help you or to help yourself in managing your project. For example, you can look at, let's say, the prices of goods and services, right? If the prices of goods and services is high, going up and down, you should be able to study it, right? If it is something that is going up and down, you study the trend, the pattern. You see, there are several instances where you need to employ these tactics or techniques in project management, right? Then verification, as we said, you need to verify product, right, at the end of the project against to make sure that what is being done or what has been done is according to the requirement of the project and the work authorization. All these ones are techniques, very, very important, right? Okay, here we go. Advantages and disadvantages of a Gantt chart. Remember, a Gantt chart is a timeline, it's a schedule, right? You use this tool to schedule your project, whereby you identify what needs to be done and how long it's gonna take. You know, I've given you, I think I did something of, yeah, I gave you an example of a Gantt chart on the board last time. So in the exam, you might be asked to uh, state the advantages or the disadvantages of a Gantt chart, right? These are the advantages. I know time is gone. I'm gonna rush through the advantages, right? Tomorrow I will repeat it again, right? The advantages is allow your work, right? Allow you to work out the project duration, which is obvious. We've done that, right? You identify the task, then you need to establish how long the tasks are going to take, right? Then you should be able to know the sequence in terms of what needs to start first, and when you finish a particular task, what needs to follow, the sequence, the relationship, right? Based on that, you can be able to establish the duration of the project. Then it lay out the order in which activities should take place, which is obvious, right? It shows the dependency between the activities. Activities in a project, they got dependencies, right? You got finish to start, start to finish, start to start. I know those type of language will get confusing to you. Finish to start. You must finish an item before you start the other one, right? Finish to finish. You feel the two items, right? Task must be finished together, right? Start to start. That means two items must start together at the same time. So those are the kind of dependencies. No problem. This one is just a preamble, an introduction. Next time we're gonna talk much in detail, right? As far as the dependency is concerned. Right. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we stop here. I'm sorry for being late. Next time, I know if I had come earlier on, we could have been able to cover much. Right. Let me leave you. You are.